This is another lesson on research methods, longitudinal studies. Yeah. So we're going to learn about this excellent research method, yeah, quite possibly the best method of all, the Rolls-Royce of social science research methods, to understand why it is so good but rarely used, and develop our research skills. Time, year, sample, observe. Remember what a sample is, you should know by now. Observe, change, comparisons, factors, reliable. I hope you know what all those keywords mean. So, what is a longitudinal study? Sometimes called, by the way, a cohort study. Yeah? It's dead simple. Number one, you pick a date. Today's date, let's say. Whatever today's date is, imagine that's your date. On that date, your sample are all the babies born that day. They are your sample. It's going to be representative. It's going to likely to have the right mixture of middle class, working class, different parts of the country, different ethnicities, all the babies born that day. They are your sample. There'll be a couple of thousand. Then you study them for many years. I don't mean you take them off their families and put them in a hospital. You go back to them. You interview them. You give them questionnaires, them and their families. You observe them. And you do it over and over again. You know, every few months for years and years and years, normally until they're 16 or 18. Think about it. You see change over time. Yeah? You get to observe change. You make comparisons. You can say, oh, what's making this happen? You can figure out the factors behind the differences in the way these kids are growing up. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of this method? Well, the advantages are it is brilliant. Yeah? Look at this chart here. It's from the most recent cohort study done by the government. This study, they picked loads of kids, like I said, they actually picked two dates. They had several thousand children. And if you study this chart for a second, if you want to pause the video for a second and study this chart, do that now. What you see is that these kids here, the green, high social class, rich, posh, but not very clever. Yeah? Yeah. They're not very clever. They rise up. They improve a lot over the course of the first 10 years of school. Or first 6 years. Compared to here, the grey line. Low social class, high ability. These are kids who are poor but clever, and they sink down. And you get this data through doing a longitudinal study. And because you've studied thousands of people picked at random, it's very hard for anyone to argue with this data. It's correct. You've done the work. Yeah. So now you should be thinking, if this is so brilliant, why don't we do it all the time? So what's the big disadvantage? It's incredibly expensive. Thousands of children over 16 years. This is massively expensive. In fact, only governments can afford to do this. In fact, the British government does this every few years. They're the only ones with the millions of pounds it costs to organise it all.